I don't know how long your average burnout.
About a minute 10.
Yeah, about a minute 10. Even in like some of the bigger, like some of the smaller contests, do they still a minute 10?
Less power you have and the less efficient your car is, the longer you go. So for some competitions in Australia, you got to go over a minute. I'm not sure what the rules are here, but if you go under a minute, DQ'd.
Under a minute is DQ.
Yeah,
too quick.
They've started taking that rule away because the cars are getting crazy. The wheel speed's getting crazy. And as drivers, we'd sit there and go, do you guys want us to go out there and give you the best show we can? Or do you want us to hold off and rev it to 7,000 RPM instead of 9?
Yeah.
And they've started going, oh, and you sort of penalise yourself. Because if you don't have enough time to use the whole pad, you're penalising yourself in that regard, as opposed to getting DQ'd for popping tyres in 59 seconds, which has happened to me before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always feel as long as you can make it interesting, like I like that. I don't like when people slow walk around the pit. That gets me frustrated when like they have no front wheel speed at all and they're just like creeping around. Yeah. They have a lot of rear wheel, but they're just kind of walking it around. That always frustrates me a little bit because it looks cool, it sounds cool, but it's like it doesn't show much skill. Anybody can hold the brakes really hard.
This is an extremely hot topic in Australia.
Is it?
This is going down the rabbit hole massively in Australia.
Oh, so instantly I found what other people get frustrated at too.
I got opinions, and as a driver, so there's a difference between crab walking and slow and fast. So in my opinion, it needs to be somewhere in the middle because, and don't get me wrong, it is easier to do a skid at running pace or jogging pace as opposed to letting off the brake and letting Jesus take the wheel. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's way easier to do it slower, but it demonstrates a lot of skill when it comes to turning the car and using the pad when you go slower. When you're just letting off the brake and doing 360s and seeing where you end up, it looks fantastic, but the skill level sort of gets taken away. And when you look at the criteria of judging a burnout, the smoke scores will be less, sort of less favourable for you because when you're moving quicker in a car, you're losing smoke because it's not as constant. So that it's a really deep rabbit hole, and people that don't know burnouts, they look at the scores and they go, it's really hard to understand. But I feel like half the sort of thing with burnouts is if you can understand how they score you, you can better yourself quite quickly.
For sure. And that was part of it is you need to know exactly how they're scoring. And they all, from what I've seen at Summernats, they keep that pretty tight to their chest, how they score exactly. Oh. And I don't hate that. I get, they keep the criteria pretty close so you don't kind of set up the perfect run just to be the perfect score. You almost kind of have to guess what they're about to judge on, which makes it a little difficult. But then if you do know, you're kind of just have this inside information.
See, this is the thing, right? Summernats is probably one of the only events in the world where they very approachable. So I remember my first Summernats event. I went to Summernats, never knew nothing about it. I didn't consider myself even a burnout guy. I was a power cruise guy.
Yeah.
Which is a totally different car vibe. Anyway, so I went up and they said, if anyone has any questions, come ask us. And I just walked up to the head judge. I said, hey man, after my burnout, I said, what can I do better? And I was just polite. And I asked him what I could do better. And he told me exactly, to the T, exactly what they're looking for.
Okay.
Which is awesome. They make out everyone makes out it's all the big secret. It's actually not. And if you're just a good person and you use your manners and you approach people at the right time, especially the Summernats guys, they will tell you exactly what you need to do. But the problem is that's how you interpret that information and then go and do it. That's where the hard part is. What
happened to me was I asked to see his iPad of how he was judging.
Yeah, nah.
But we were talking before that and I was like, oh, can I see what the criteria is? And he goes, no. I was like, okay, that makes sense. But in my mind, I was like, well, I was working with Garrett and stuff and I was trying to replicate the judging style in the US, which would have never worked at the time. Way too early on for thinking like that. But that was my thought. I was like, maybe I can translate some of this into us, but I get it. They keep that. Yeah. They keep their exact criteria a little tight to them. And I I don't blame them for that.
I think once they start scoring people, they won't show you because it's information. It's like they take it serious. Australians
they
take
should.
burnouts.
There's big money on the line. They gotta take it serious.
Yeah, sort of.
There's money on the line.
There's money on the line. I wouldn't say big.
Yeah.
Not compared to what we spend on the cars, but
I mean, we're talking the same in drag racing. We spend like $200,000 on a car, and you're happy to win $2,500.
Yeah, and you go out there and trash your stuff to impress people you don't know. Like, yeah, I think get the whole. But hey, I do it for the thrill for myself. But
that's what you have to tell yourself at night.
Yeah, to get to sleep. Yeah,
there's no other way.
No, there's $5,000 on
yeah, there's no other way to make it work.
But yeah, Summernats are an extremely professional outfit, and they actually very approachable. And there's been massive controversy over the years about certain people not winning certain events, and then they have a whinge online. Which, granted, sometimes I say, that was good, but But if they went a different way about it, it would have been a different outcome. Mm-hmm. So people just choose the wrong way to do things. And unfortunately for them, most of the times you'll cop a ban. But hey, it's their show. And at the end of the day, people go, I've had many people come, if you go to America and you don't catch on fire and you do this and that. I said, end of the day, this is their show. I'm going to their show.
Yeah.
If they don't want to see constant RPM and using corners and that, if they want to see fire, limiter bashing, I'm not putting my car on a wall. I've said that from as soon as I got to America. If that's what they want to see, it's their show. They don't score me well because I know what you want and I'm not doing it. Mm-hmm. But that's at the end of the day, we go to their show. If that's what they want to see, that's what you need to do.
I think that has changed a lot. Like fire, I don't think is going to get you anywhere. Hitting a wall shouldn't get you anywhere.
Absolutely not.
Especially if you hit the wall with the nose of your car. If the nose of your car hits the wall, like you're done. Yeah. Like that's it.
Put your shit on the trailer.
Yeah, like especially on the tipping.
Yeah.
That's real bad. But if you scrape your bumper on the wall a little bit, but you have like control enough where it doesn't move the wall or move the car, that's pretty impressive to me if you have that spatial awareness. Like Formula Drift is similar. You got to get really close to the wall. You show how spatially aware you are and it's the same deal, though. It's a judge sport.
Yeah.
So in a judge sport, there's always going to be contention.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to argue. That's where it gets tough.
There's no clear-cut winner.
I don't know how many judges Summernats uses, though.
3 or 4.
Yeah, because I feel like that helps, too, is having a lot of judges.
Because Burnouts is a sport, right? You can stand at one end of the pad and see absolutely zero. Once, like you'll see with my car or even Garrett's or Cletus's car, Killer B as well. I'm sure it's a good smoke car.
Yeah.
He does a tip in front of you and you're not seeing anything for 30 seconds at all.
He's not seeing anything in the car.
No, well, you try. So you'll see that the fact that your vantage point might be different to someone else. And this is the controversy goes, people see online, they see from a guy's camera over that side and they can't see anything, but you've seen the guy hit walls, not go close to the corner, change his RPM, change his line, steering around, going nowhere. That stuff matters. So at the end of the day, having 4 judges and having them around the pad, they can all see bits and pieces and they talk. After a skid, they talk to each other and say, did he hit that wall? Did he not hit that wall? I've lost comps by hitting a wall, less than like a Talio paper, like a roll. Like, I don't know if you have Talios here, but I'm talking just nicked a wall and it cost me a whole competition. So it's very strict and
that's tough when you just nick a wall like that. Like that's a debatable one for me because I feel like if you don't move the barricade, you're doing pretty decent.
But where do you draw the line? It's what's a big hit, what's a small hit. If you blanket a rule and say you even nick it, touch it, move it, drive it,
that makes it easy.
You got to draw the line somewhere.
That makes it an easy line. There's no paint on the wall. You're safe.
So they came to the pit. This is in Australia, one of the big comps, and Summernats comps there. And I was the only one to use this. They had this chute, right? And there was one of the baddest burnout cars in the world there, Peter Gramusa. 700 cube, big block. Like, the thing is an animal, absolute animal.
What kind of car is it?
XR Falcon. He's actually sold it. He retired. The last comp I won, he was there and he hurt his motor. And he told me he was going to retire. And but anyway, we'll get to that. But he so basically this thing is an absolute beast. If he goes out and has a clean run, put your shit on the trailer. It is proper badass. Anyway, so he did his burnout. I was like, all right, if I want to win this, I've got to push the boundaries. See, my car is about a 9 out of 10, his car's a 10 out of 10. So if you're doing the same thing he's doing, say 8 out of 10 out of 10, whatever. If I'm doing the same thing he's doing, absolutely cannot compete with him.
Yeah, because if you guys did the same run,
yeah,
his car will win.
The only way I can beat him is driver skill, which is a massive part of the pointing. So I saw the pad and I said, all right, I've got to take some serious risks here. If I don't take a risk, I'm getting second or third. Is what it is, can't help it. So I went out and I drove the wheels off this car and I used every inch. I went up places where you come into the pad. I went back up there and turned around and come out. And
yeah,
it was really slippery and really, really sucked together. So when the car was sideways, there was not much room on each side of the car. Like they didn't want you to go up there, but I had to go up there to win. Went up there, just tagged the wall. I felt it. And they probably knew when I wasn't really celebrating as much as what I should have. And they weren't sure. They walked on the pad to pick up a bit of tyre, turned around, there's a tiny bit of green paint on the wall. They then ran to my pit bay, which was probably 300 metres away, and he comes over, he goes, did you hit the wall or didn't you hit the wall? One of the judges. And I'm pretty honest, man. I can't lie. I said, yeah, I hit the wall. He goes, oh, thanks for being honest, but it just cost you, basically.
Yeah, you knew you were going to lose,
yeah.
But it was the right thing to do to tell him that it actually hit touched.
And unfortunately, I can't lie like that, so... And everyone's like, oh, you shouldn't have told them. You
get banned, too, for things like that, right? If they knew you were doing it on purpose, maybe.
You wouldn't get the right, you don't want to be known as someone that cheats. Yeah. So I told them and they said, hey, man, you didn't hit that wall. You're looking real good, So, but it is what it is. So, but yeah, it's hard to, when they got 4 judges, getting back to the 4 judges, obviously 4 points of view, you can see 4 different angles and you don't miss things that one judge obviously would miss.
Yeah, it's interesting to do. The judge sports are always tough for me. I've always had so much doubt about them. I like watching Formula Drift. I like watching Burnouts. I've always struggled with judge sports, but a good burnout, everybody knows, like in the US, you pretty much know who won if you watch them all.
Yeah.
Like there's a standout almost all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty obvious to most people. But then some people are like, well, like don't realize the nuances of like, yeah, but his engine blew up and he had to get pushed off the pad. So like just little things like that like people that just watch the burnout may not realize like that doesn't get a win.
Yeah.
Like if you leave your crank on the
or you're reversed. Little things like and that's like Australia still struggles. The general public that go to Summernats or Power Crews, you see online after they might have 50 comments saying, why didn't X person win? Because they did an awesome burnout and there was flames and dragons and lasers and all sorts of stuff going on. And at the end of the day, they don't understand the judging. And I feel like they're getting better because people are starting to explain what's what. But America, you guys got to go through that from scratch. You got to go through, hey, what do you mean he didn't win? He did, awesome smoke and this, he caught on fire and then he used a K-frame against the wall. And so, yeah, it's just a progression of the sport. You definitely catch quick.
Yeah, it's going to be a long process for us. I think we got another 2-3 years before it really. Guys, thank you for tuning in to the Bogetti Clips YouTube channel. For the full podcast, check us out on Bogetti Studios YouTube and all your audio platforms. Also, hit that subscribe button to not miss out on any of the new Bogetti clips coming up.